so much for showing up today. My name is Marc-Andre. I'm the director of the Canadian Centre for the Study of Cooperatives, also an assistant professor at the Johnson Suyama Graduate School of Public Policy. And it's my great pleasure today to welcome Jorge Arturo Campos. I hope I've pronounced that all right, Jorge?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. I just wanted to say a few words before I pass it over to you, Jorge, because this webinar, this discussion is really the result of your initiative. I think it was around last March or April where you reached out to us and said, hey, I've heard about the center. It'd be interesting if we built some sort of relationship. And I said, yeah, that sounds kind of fun. And so we've been at this kind of back and forth about developing a memorandum of understanding. And we finally got that approved in November, December. And so it creates the basis for us to kind of develop a relationship over time. No formal commitments yet, but there could be some down the road. And I know Jorge's also been reaching out to other centers, St. Mary's, for example. And I think this is a wonderful initiative. And I just want to thank and applaud Jorge for taking this on. I think it's about time that places that study cooperatives should really have relationships and should really build on their own cooperative, their own adherence to cooperative values through their own behavior with other cooperative centers. So that I think it's a wonderful thing you've done, Jorge, and that's why I thought it would be so nice to have you tell us a little bit today about your university, FUNDEPOS, and its relationship to the cooperative sector, and just generally about yourself and your sector in Costa Rica. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to you, Jorge, and thank you again for agreeing to do this.
Thank you very much to you, Mark, and to Stan, for all the coordination you did. I know you, Mark, did a lot of work to make this MOU possible through your university, and I thank you for that, because I really believe that cooperation is something we have to pursue. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things we can learn from the COP movement in Canada. By reading about it is what I got interested in getting close to it, so I approached the Costa Rican authorities so that they could help us find ways by which we could get together, and it worked. So this is the result of that, and I sure hope that this is just the beginning of many activities we could carry out once we return to some normal conditions and traveling is permitted or is safer. I'm pretty sure that we have, because we have already spoken about this, we have Costa Rican cooperative groups which are interested in visiting your province to learn about what you're doing, and I'm pretty sure that eventually you may be also interested in coming to Costa Rica. Having that as an introduction, Mark, if you wish, I can just move on and start with the presentation, which is short. I'm going to move a bit fast over several three main topics, which we agreed on to be the framework of this conversation, and then we open for questions. As I understand, that's what we will do, right?
That would be perfect. Thank you, Jorge.
Okay, then I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, we move on with the presentation. Our university is called FUNDEPOS. And before we move on, I want to talk about proportion, because I always like to know who am I talking to. And it happens that you are a huge province with a very big area, not such a big population. But when you compare that to Costa Rica, we are 21 times smaller than your province. So that really says a lot. Our population is a bit larger than yours. My statistics are for 2019, and the ones I found in the internet are for 2013 for Saskatchewan. So we are the giant and the dwarf, and we'll move on with that proportion. The first topic that we decided to talk about was the context of cooperatives in Costa Rica. And some general facts is from 1907, we had the first COP society built in Costa Rica. Then the labor code has a component that gives some law principles for cooperatives since 1943. And in 1943 also, the first COP was established, which still operates now, and that's the important fact. It has been on for 78 years. Um, in the 60s, in 68, the Cooperative Association Act was created. In the 73, the National Institute for Cooperative Development, which is a state institute, was created, as well as the National Council for Cooperatives. And in 1982, the Center for Cooperative Studies and Training, which is CENECOOP, was created. And this center is something similar to the center to which you belong, Mark. And this Center for Cooperative Studies and Training is, as of now, the main owner of the university. We have around 600 cops. Statistics are from 20, uh, 2012, I believe, 2016. We don't have very recent numbers, so probably this number could be a bit higher today. About 21% of the population belongs to co-ops, and that is about one of every Costa Rican is a co-op member. So cooperative in Costa Rica is something that people know about, maybe not as much as we wish, but it is an important sector of the population which is linked to co-ops. In terms of economic contributions, 220 million in exports, people with electrification services, especially in rural areas, over 700,000 people benefit from this. A lot of the coffee production, 36% plus, is produced by co-ops. This number is probably smaller than the real one because the statistics, as I said, are not very recent. So this probably is around 30,000 or more direct jobs. If we add the indirect jobs, this is a much larger number. The co-ops are involved in several sectors. The agro-industrial co-ops produce palm oil, milk co-ops, the milk cooperative, which is just one, but a very large one, producing over 90% of the national total, which is also the largest cooperative in Central America. It exports now to Central America, to the Caribbean, and it also exports to the United States. So it's really a large co-op, not only for Costa Rican standards, but for regional standards. And then we have the savings and loans, which really have a big impact. These statistics call for 40% of the national financial system, 14, excuse me. But more recent numbers I have read talk about 20% of the national financial system. And which is of interest is that based on international statistics, of the largest over 1,000 savings and loans co-ops in Latin America and the Caribbean, Costa Rican co-ops occupy the 4th, 7th, 8th, and 11th in their rankings. So that means that we really have a very sound savings and loan system. Being a very small country, if you compare this with Latin America and the Caribbean, you can see Costa Rica is here, and we really represent a very small country. We're the second smallest in Central America, and if compared with Mexico, over here, Colombia, Brazil, Peru, Argentina, which have very strong co-ops, even then, Costa Rica has a very strong position in terms of savings and loans. That means people believe in the system. And now that I'm here, for those of you that may not be clear in the geographical location, we are between Panama to the south and Nicaragua to the north. So you move from Canada, United States, Mexico, and then we are between Nicaragua and Panama. If I have to provide some some examples of commitment of the co-op sector in terms of how they deal with the environment, innovation, or how they do, how they involve with such a commitment, carbon neutral is one of the aspects that co-ops have looked at. And it is interesting because if you look at the first one here, which is called Copedota, since March 2011, they were certified and they keep it. And this is the first coffee co-op that was certified carbon neutral. In the case of Copedota, this makes sense because of market implications, because they export coffee worldwide, I would say, to the United States, to Asia, and Japan is a very good client. I don't know if also to Canada. The other two cups called Copelesca, this one here, and Copesantos, names are not that important, are electric cups. So in this case, they went carbon neutral because of the commitment they have with the environment, because that's part of the principles and values of the cooperative sector, because these electric cups get no benefit from going through this process. They are the only providers in their area, so customers have to buy from them. There's no other oil provider. So they do this because they do believe they have to protect the environment, and they want to have a cleaner production. And they have done it, and they keep it, they maintain it. These are just three examples. There are many more which are also carbon neutral or in the process of becoming carbon neutral. And we have Cope Servidores since 2016. They have been very strong pursuers of complying with this sustainable development goals. And they have campaigns, and they are trying to involve other COPs and other sectors also in complying with this very, very important initiative of the United Nations. So these are examples of environmental commitment. Interesting here is that if, in the coffee production business, what you use is the bean of the coffee, but the external part, which is called the pulp, has a lot of sugar, and it is discarded during the process of coffee industrialization. However, this external part also have a lot of antioxidants. And so one COP got involved in the industrial process to recover this, and they eventually produced a product called Naux, which is a coffee fruit concentrate with a lot of antioxidants, which is in the market now and being exported also. The cooperative is called Copeagri. And what's interesting here is that by doing this, they reduced the water. They are using almost 99% of all the water used in the industrial process. So they discard a very minor proportion. And most important than that is that they are not discarding this water to rivers, which really cause a large pollution problem because of the amount of sugar in the pulp. Once it gets to the river, it reduces the oxygen content and it kills the biota. And so you have rivers that not only are dead, but they smell very bad. So this is a very clear example of innovation, of taking a problem and converting that into something which makes sense in terms of economic benefit and also environmental benefit for the environment, for the communities, and for the members of the COP. Another example of what we have done is this Cooperative Horizons is a magazine that we have in Costa Rica, where we publish activities of the cooperatives. It belongs to this CENECOOP, which I mentioned before. And a study was made with the aid of the INCAE Business School about the indicators of social progress in Costa Rica. And this social progress index is based on three pillars: basic needs, well-being, and opportunities. And we deal with health assistance, water sanitation, housing, personal security, basic knowledge, access to information and communication, health and well-being, sustainability of the ecosystem, personal rights, freedom, tolerance to inclusion, access to higher education. So all these elements are taken into consideration through interviews to hundreds of people. And the idea was to evaluate how was this behaving country-wise. And we went from the northern Pacific to the southern part of the country, moving to the central part, to the Pacific central part of Costa Rica. And what we found is that these areas around here, what we have cooperatives that have been established for a long time. They are successful COPs, and they also have strong links with their communities is where we got the higher indexes. As we move to these areas, the indices are lower. These are not such successful co-ops in terms of their productivity. So what this says is that when you look at what are I have to move this, I don't know how to, the, these are the communities, and these are what the COPs are involved. In this case, in this community, it is a sugarcane co-op, a health co-op, coffee cup. So this coffee and sugar cane, because we are an agricultural country, or where at least there was the strong activities, economic activities of Costa Rica in the previous decades. So we find that the strength of this index here is in housing, basic knowledge, higher education, health and well-being, ecosystem and sustainability. This is what makes this index strong in this part of the country. As I said, agriculture crops. When you look at weaknesses in this area where we have palm oil crops, which are younger crops, not as old and not as successful as I said before, we have that the weaknesses are in personal security, ecosystem and sustainability, higher education, information and communication. So by doing this study, we know this is what we have to really take care of. This is what we have to look at. And by looking at this, we could then be able to help these co-ops be more successful, more related to their communities, and maybe move them to higher indexes. Something else that came out of this study is that a comparison was made between this COP called Copa Victoria, which is here in Grecia, which is the one I mentioned was the first COP built in Costa Rica, established in Costa Rica 78 years ago. When we compare this to Hacienda Juan Viñas, which is a private company, both work in the sugar cane industry, all the indicators of the social index were higher at Copa Victoria and the surrounding areas and communities than they were at Hacienda Juan Viñas. People are better identified with the COP, and this strength were really higher in this area than Juan Viñas. So that kind of indicates us what are the elements that people take into consideration and what are the results of a COP with a strong activity in a community. The second topic that we decided to talk on was what the COP-related programs are offered at the university that I work at. And I will deal with this, but also talk about CENECOOP, which is the Center for Cooperative Studies and Training. At this center, they are involved in education, training, and the interest is to give the COP sector possibilities to education in terms of making sure that we have possibilities to give them more competitivity, both nationally and in terms of the possibilities of being competitive internationally in the cases of those COPs that have export processes. The system is, at the moment, courses online. Those courses are 40 hours. They are certified, so people who go through the process do have their certification, and they are very cheap. They're about $9 each. And these are online courses. CENECOOP has a very strong online platform that provides this to the COP sector. Excuse me for that. I'm missing one slide here. Okay, if we talk about what the university is providing through the IDEPI, which is the Institute of Learning and Development, we have courses in a very wide variety of topics, from accounting to personal finance to basic Excel, digital marketing, financial administration, human resources. Again, this is given the possibility for constant education. These courses are offered to this cooperative sector, but anybody can have access to them and take those courses. There are about 50 additional courses, what we call face-to-face. They're not being offered now because of the pandemic, but these courses were very strongly directed to cooperative betterment in terms of management, of administration, of project development and management, and interpretation of financial statements. The aim of this, and over 50 more courses that are available, is that the COP sector, the management, the administration, the administration boards of the COPs, the managers of the different departments, have the capacity and the opportunity to continue with their education. These courses are generally offered, and scholarships are provided to the participants so that their economic burden is less. Excuse me, and we also guarantee that more of them can participate. The idea here is to provide the tools to the COP and to the administration of the COP to have better possibilities for them to be successful. In case of the university, we have a university that was established in Costa Rica in 1983, but in 1999, it was turned to the COP movement. As of now, 90% belongs to CENECOOP and 10% belongs to Coopalianza, which is another COP. Which this tells is that our university really responds to the cooperative sector, and we have a very strong and close relationship with them. The university offers an MBA with emphasis in international business, banking and finance, or marketing. And in terms of we also have a bachelor in business administration, marketing, or accounting. This is the concentration of the university in terms of degree courses and activities. We also have the Institute for I cannot get rid of this here so that you can see. Well, the Institute for Research and Learning. This institute provides courses for specialists in these different areas, all the way from neuromanagement to prevention of capital legitimation for integrated strategy of digital marketing. These courses are very solicited by the sector, not only by the COP sectors, but also the business sector in Costa Rica also, as well as the technicians in different areas from insurance to energy management to accounting. And we also have certifications in big data, Scrum Master, professional salesperson. Again, specialists, technicians, and certifications. This is the idea of this is to respond very fast to the needs of the sector and in the areas where they we identify, or in the areas where they indicate us that they need more training. Also, the private sector is responding to this offer that we have here. In terms of how we relate with programs and culture surrounding the COPs at the university and vice versa, which is the last topic that we decided to talk about. As also some of the courses are requested by, are proposed by the university to the COP sector or to the private sector. Many of them are requested by the COP. So this is where we have that relation in both directions. We offer based on what we think the market needs are, but the COPs also request cooperation when they need particular training. This is the example of what we're offering, which is a technician in assistant in aeronautical maintenance. This was requested by COPESA, which is an excuse me, an aero-industrial services cooperative. And which is interesting is this, is, as we know, this is probably the only cooperative for maintenance, repair, and overhaul of planes. So we're dealing with a group of 20 students. They're taking lessons at the university, and they are also doing their practice at the main facilities of the company. The idea is that they will have a technician degree in maintenance, aeronautical maintenance. The company, the cooperative is growing, and that's why they need, this is the group of 20 of 150 that they need to train in this particular field. Again, this was a particular request of the COP. We find the teachers and we put the course together, making sure that they can get their degrees once they finish the program. We have another program going on, which is called, this is in Spanish, PIEA. If we translate that, what we want is the strengthening of the associative competitiveness of the Costa Rican cooperative movement through entrepreneurship and innovation. That was very difficult to pronounce, but basically what we want to do is make sure that we provide opportunities for the COPs to get involved in innovation and to help entrepreneurship, making sure that we provide possibilities for them to find new ways, new products to be more competitive in the market. And the objective of this is, again, to strengthen the innovation ecosystem in Costa Rica. And we also want to make sure that the competitiveness of the cooperatives provide them the possibilities to be more sustainable. This is done because we have, as I showed in the studies previously, that if we have more competitiveness, we probably will provide better opportunities, better quality of life for the people involved. And especially we need now to provide more employment. With this pandemic, we have lost a lot of jobs. So innovation and entrepreneurship is really something that is extremely important at the country level, not only the COP level. And this program has the direct support from the government of Costa Rica. This program has gone for 1 year. We're going to go for three more years and probably one more. We begin with the project and entrepreneur training. Then we analyze the potential of the projects or ideas that are presenting. We go through a routing process where we direct the initiatives towards the type of training they may need or the type of activity they may need, such as incubation, acceleration, and monitoring. And finally, we go through funding, and there's a bank system for development in Costa Rica, which is through which we want them to go through. The training programs we're offering to the entrepreneurs are one called Empieza, which is for basic level for potential entrepreneurs. Started up when there is already a business model, and we are also dealing with adults 45 plus who may be interested in carrying out projects and finding ways by which they can get funding. The process basically starts with the preparation, and this is, to us, it was very interesting because we found out when we started having meetings and going to different regions that, especially now with the pandemic, that everything went virtual, that a lot of people did not have any possibility because they didn't know how to do it. So we had to establish a digital literacy program to start teaching people how to access the tools that are available in the market, the internet, so that they could have remote communication, remote learning. This basically meant we had to go one step before, start with this, and then we have the pre-incubation programs and the rest that I will present. But digital literacy was important. Then we moved to projects of acceleration when we have an initiative that has over 1 year of operation. And finally, we have tutors that work with the projects already in progress, trying to make sure that we provide them with the tools needed for these programs to be successful. We also develop, or are in the process of developing, because this is not finished, of a digital file. And in this case, what we need is to make sure that we learn about the initial state of the potential activity. Uh, we want to direct this to what we call the business development services available in the ecosystem in Costa Rica, both public and private, based on the type of activity and how developed it is. We then direct this to the best possible source of funding. We really want to make sure that we can have track of these activities, that we can record the activities so we know where they stand, where they began, where they are now, and eventually if they were successful, and if not, also learn why not. And we try to be with them until they find access to one final operator in Costa Rica. The process is more or less like this. We have the entry system, this entry of the user. Excuse me. It could be here that we have cooperative beneficiaries that are not qualified for the banking system for development, be it because they are in a very initial state or because they don't have their financial records in rule, or many other reasons. If that is the case, then we direct them to the national cooperative system, where they have access to other types of resources. If they're absolutely non-bankable beneficiaries because they're in an ultra-low stage, then we have two social programs where they can have access to non-fundable resources for very basic initiatives. Once the entry criteria is made for those who have better possibilities, then they enter through this process. And here, what we want to do is move with the people, make sure they have access to training, make sure that we have the possibility for tracking, and very important, that we can evaluate the impact of the initiative, the project, the activity that they do, and eventually have them, those users, be qualified for credit. Again, tracking for us here becomes a very big issue because we have a lot of entrepreneurs who enter and then they leave the process, but sometimes we don't know why, if there was a problem, if they needed more support, and this tracking is providing or will provide us with that very important information. Um, we have also a component which is directed to the evaluation of a diagnosis in socio-productive activities in the country. Costa Rica is divided in 7 provinces, 3 in the northern area, San Jose, which is the capital, and then we have the Caribbean region here, and we have the southern part. Although we have 7 provinces, we have divided the country in socioeconomic regions. These are, instead of 7, only 6, with the central one being a big component of it, then the Caribbean, Northern, Chorotega, and Brunca. These socioeconomic regions are for reasons of similarity in terms of the economic activities, and this is basically done for orienting the management that the government carries out on the activities and how they provide support for development in each region. The diagnosis for the Brunca region, which is the socio-productive diagnosis, this region down south. Now, we finished this already. We're in the process of finishing this one, Chorotega. We will start Huetar Norte already. Huetar Caribe was the first one. Eventually, we'll move into the central part and the Central Pacific. This socioeconomic diagnosis, what they provide us is with a zonal map of the commercial activities. This map tells us, based on all the interviews and the field work we do, it shows us what are the activities in each part of this region, their importance, and also eventually if there are any problems in terms of developing or giving more support to those activities. We find what are the unmet needs and demand, a matrix of productive development opportunities by geographical area and productive activity. We have an identification of entrepreneurship opportunities based on sustainable productive change. And finally, we have an analysis of expected results where we want to promote economic revival of the region. These are the four main results, products of each of those socioeconomic um, um, activities that we do. This is part of this same project of innovation. And as you see, we are interested in number 4 here, again, of new activities, innovative activities that we can promote so that we can help with the competitiveness of these areas in Costa Rica. The last project that I want to present you with is a project where we are trying to find out how the COP sector is fulfilling the SDGs or the 2030 agenda. For this, we developed an instrument of evaluation where we have for each of the objectives, we have the goals, we have the indicators, and for each indicator, we are evaluating if there is no activity at all, if they are in an initial state, if they have a intermediate practice, or if they have advanced practice. And for each of these, we have a score, and the score is for the indicators. Depending on how this is evaluated, there's a 0, 1, 2, or 3. And since there are many indicators for each goal, and the end, we will have for the goal, how many indicators and how were they fulfilled. And that provides us to have also a score for the total objective. This is automatic. It just adds up once we have the results. The idea with this is to help the COPs in finding ways by which they can better comply with the SDGs, because we are absolutely sure that the cooperative sector is probably the best suited to really comply with this, not only because in the case of Costa Rica, they are in all sectors of economy, but they are also in all sectors, all regions of the country. So they have a very direct relation with communities, with people, with economic activities, and the principles and values of the COP sector are extremely well suited to the SDGs. So this is the large part we do. Also, we have here 2 possibilities for them, for those interviewed, to let us know if there are limitations to comply with the indicator, and to let us know what are those limitations, so we may be able to help them with this. And they have suggestions for betterment also, where they make an evaluation of what they could do better if they need or want to comply with one particular indicator. So that's in a very fast way, examples of what we do, what the academic offer is, what the environmental, social, and economic activities are, and what the research we are doing now close with the COP sector. All I have to say is thank you very much for your attention. Muchas gracias por su atención, and I hope to see you here soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jorge. That was wonderful. And I mean, speaking for myself, I hope to find my way to Costa Rica before. And I'm sure others have a similar sentiment. I forgot to mention, Jorge, that you are a professor, or have been anyway, a professor at the FUNDEPOS and at other universities. So I just want to reflect on that as well. And thank you for that. And University of Veritas Uni, and I'm not sure I'm getting that right, but
Veritas, yes, that's the name.
Yes, and then you were also president of the Costa Rica Institute for Fisheries and Aquaculture. So
I was
very kind of engaged scholarship, and it was a real treat. I do have a whole slew of questions. I might ask one, and then I'll ask people to raise their hands through the raised hand function. That is in the reactions button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you have an older version of Zoom, it may be in the participants, under the participants icon. So once I've asked my question, please raise your hands and we'll turn to you one at a time. And I see a question also in the chat. So I'll go there next, and then we'll do the hands. So my question for you is, Jorge, is about FUNDEPOS. You know, here in Canada, a lot of universities are struggling a little bit financially and otherwise. And I'm wondering how FUNDEPOS is doing. It's a private university, as I understand it. It's owned by the cooperative sector. Do you rely on a lot of funding from the cooperative sector, or is it self-sustaining? And how is its profile? How does it stand in the country? How is it regarded?
Both. We have private funding for the courses that we offer to the sector, whoever wants to participate, and we also have participation from the COP sector. It is interesting that a lot of our students come from the COP sector, and those students have access to scholarships because the CENECOOP and the InfoCoop, the Institute for Cooperatives, have by law an allowance of certain percentage of the financial transactions. So that provides them with funds that they direct to education, and they must use them in education. So through that, we have a way by which we can help students with scholarships and make them easier to study at the university. In a nutshell, we're doing fine. We are not a very large university. We are growing. It is interesting that even last year, with all the problems, we grew. The idea is to grow a bit more. We want to really strengthen our visual system, have a very strong one, because we have found out that people really want to go through visual learning. They now, as they learn how to do it, they prefer not to travel. A lot of our students are students that work. They take courses at night. So they'd rather go back home, stay there, have their lesson, and not having to travel, not having to go through rush hour. So that provides quality of life, less pollution, and better learning from them. But we have to make sure that we do it right, because going from face-to-face to virtual is not just taking the same and putting it to virtual. That's not the game. You have to start from scratch if you want to really have a good virtual platform for students.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jorge. So we do have some questions in chat, and I'll jump to those, Jorge. So the first question is, does FUNDEPOS support tourism cooperatives, for instance, agritourism or community-based tourism projects? Can you speak to that one?
Last year, no. In 2019, we held the agro ecotourism conference here in Costa Rica with the COP sector. So yes, we do. And we have a hotel in the southern part of Costa Rica, which is a hotel school that works training people for the industry, for the hotel industry and the tourist industry in Costa Rica. And we also have provided courses for this certification of sustainable tourism in Costa Rica. So yes, we do have experience. We have also offered advice to Panamanian companies or clubs that want and need training in fields like that. Yes, we do.
Fantastic. So another question here is, I'm wondering about the role of women and Indigenous peoples in the co-op movement in Costa Rica. So can you speak to that as well, Jorge?
Yes, of course. Well, just to tell you in a very fast way, the president of the university is a lady. The president of CENECOOP is a lady. So we really take that very seriously. And they have a very strong participation in the cooperative sector. There are some Indigenous co-ops, not very many, especially in the Caribbean area and northern area where we have more Indigenous people, but in the center part, in the North Pacific, that's not a very strong movement. And most of those Indigenous co-ops are kind of basic small co-ops. They're not very large activities in Indigenous co-ops.
Great, thank you. And another question.
I hope I answered the question properly. I'm not sure if that's
I think so. I mean, I'd ask Isabel to jump in if she had any follow-ups.
Yes.
Before we move on. Isabel, any follow-up on that?
Thank you. Yes, that gave me some sense, especially in relation to the SDGs. Clearly, it's important that there is significant participation of women and Indigenous peoples. So you're saying that women are prominent, but Indigenous peoples are more in smaller co-ops.
In a way, yes. We don't have, because of the way Costa Rica developed through the Spanish conquer, we are a very small country, and we had a very low indigenous population. So the mixture between the Spanish and the Indian population at the moment was very strong. And our indigenous people actually ran away from the Spaniards, and so they could not have people to work their land. The only way they had to do it was to mix with indigenous people. So Costa Rica has one of the lowest proportions of indigenous people of all Central America. That is why probably we don't have such a strong activity in COPs with indigenous people, because there is not a very large population.
Thank you, Jorge. That's some good context. So we have another question here from Taylor. Thank you for the presentation, Jorge. This is from Taylor. Taylor works with the Manitoba Cooperative Association remotely in San Jose, Costa Rica. So there you go. She's not too far away. So a question for you: how can cooperatives work more closely with other sectors, for example, tourism, to boost economic and social development and overall SDG goals? Do you have any examples of this?
I didn't follow the question. Would you please do it again?
Yeah, sure. Do you have any examples of how cooperatives are working with other sectors? And she mentioned tourism. I think you've addressed this earlier, but to boost economic and social development and generally achieve the social development goals. So do you have any examples of how the co-ops are working with other sectors?
Yes, of course. For example, we have some of the electric cooperatives which are extremely involved with environmental issues. One of them called Co-operatives, which is one of the ones I mentioned in the presentation, that is carbon neutral. They decided, based on the administration board of the COP, that they wanted to protect the water sources of the region where they work. So they got the permission of the assembly, and they began investing in buying lands where the water springs were present, that were providing water for the communities. And they wanted to do this before those areas were disturbed and that water could be at risk. So they moved from electricity to nature protection, water protection, which could be a commitment in their values and principles, but it is not established like so. That was their initiative by looking in their surroundings and wanting to have a better quality of life for people. Also, they are providing internet access to those homes who have not the resources to connect. And they are doing this because they want to assure that students have the possibilities to really have access to communication, to information, and then not to restrain their possibilities to really have the capacity to learn. So these are just two examples of many more that can be mentioned on where COPs really get involved. They are very involved in providing health services, even though we have a social health system very strong in Costa Rica. The COPs, where the COPs are present, some of them, especially when you have agro-industrial COPs that are strong, they have their own health system provided to the members of the COP to make sure that they have access to the latest that medicine can provide.
Thank you, Jorge. So interesting. And we have a question here from Veronica that she's probably capturing a question a lot of us have. I know I've thought about it. So are there any teaching opportunities at FUNDEPOS, Jorge? And how difficult is it to work there as a teacher if you're not from Costa Rica? And I might just add, I assume that the language of instruction is Spanish.
Yes, language is Spanish, of course. Well, but I don't think the doors are closed. Everything is possible, especially through this process of conversation that we have now. And indeed, when I said that at the beginning, and this is something I spoke with Mark the first time we met through Zoom. The idea with this is that eventually we can have some exchange of scholars and have people maybe not precisely teach at the university, which could be more difficult because of the restraints that the Ministry of Education here has, as in any country, but maybe through special courses, special topics where we can develop the needs for that. First of all, finding exactly what is that the sectors require. So that's a possibility by all means.
All things that we hope to explore in the coming
Yes.
months and years.
Yes.
Any other questions? I have a long list of my own, but I want to make sure other folks have a chance here. Any other questions from the audience? And please raise your hand or use the chat function. I see a hand here from Tracy. So Tracy, go. I think. Oh, Tracy, I'm sorry. That was my hand, my cursor. Any questions from the audience? Either in chat or hand raise. Yeah, okay, good question from Murray Hildebro, sorry. Does the government support the co-op movement in terms of bylaws, et cetera? I might add in terms of funding or favorable tax policy, or, how does the government support the cooperative sector in Costa Rica?
Okay, as I mentioned before, the Institute for Cooperative Development is a government institute that gets a percentage of funds from the banking system and from cooperatives also. And this is dedicated for learning processes. And so these funds are provided to the cooperatives and provided also to the university, well, not directly to the university, but to the CENECOOP. And this is in the way of scholarships. We provide possibilities for students. So yes, there's a lot of support, support to the cooperative sector. In the later months, there has been a large discussion in the legislature here because they want to increase the percentage of taxes in the COP sector. They want to move up to 15%. Now, at the moment, we're around 5. The argument is that the COP sector is not really providing or paying taxes to the government. But this is not really a fact because all the members of the COPs pay taxes. So they are already providing to the government. But, as probably in any country, they really want to get as much as possible.
Yeah, this is a very, very familiar debate, Jorge, from the Canadian perspective, and we can have a conversation about that another time. So I have a question from Murray Fulton. So what's the biggest challenge facing Costa Rican co-ops right now? Is it finance, member commitment, governance, or something else? What's their number one challenge, would you say?
That's a very interesting question. Governance is always a problem. We have courses in governance, and we help the COPs with that. But if you have to divide this. If you go to the agro-industrial COPs, our main challenge now is the constitution of the membership because it is very old. There are 60 plus, and we're not seeing any of the new generations really coming with interest and energy to these COPs. And that's a problem because eventually we're going to lose those members. And here is where we really think that this process of innovation and entrepreneurship makes sense. If you go to the agro-industrial or agro co-ops, the young generations, they don't want to take a shovel and go to the field to clean the coffee plantation. They don't want to do that now. You have to provide them with new ways of getting involved. And these new ways have to do with technology, because if you don't introduce technology, we're going to lose the game. And I see very interesting examples of what is happening in China, for example, where due to the very large access to internet and to wideband internet in most parts of the country, they are now promoting that the producers announce their own products through cellular phones with videos. So they're from their field, they're advertising their products. That advertisement is going directly to the consumer. So eventually they have a system by which if I am producing potatoes and I advertise my potatoes and Mark wants to buy them, he buys them directly from me. There's no intermediate person. And in 24 hours or less, that product is going to be in your door. So you have fresh product, better price for you and better price for the consumer. And that is being done by the young people who want to get involved in this process of marketing, maybe not necessarily doing the hard work in the land, but that's how you get more young people involved, and that's how you may have the co-op alive. Otherwise, if you rely on a shovel, it's not going to work anymore.
Fantastic, Jorge. That was great. I did have a follow-up question from the earlier question around support from government. And I think the person, Murray, was asking specifically about trade support, export charges, membership criteria, any government policy that's export oriented, that's directed at co-ops. Are you aware of it?
Not aware of, but I may not be the best person to respond to that question. I believe that the co-ops have exactly the same conditions that the rest of the export sector, but I may be mistaken. I have never read of anything different, but I'm not an expert in that part.
Okay, Jorge. So it is 4 o'clock. I do have one question that I've been burning to ask you, so I'll ask it very quickly and then we'll wrap up. So Jorge, you talked about this wonderful entrepreneurial incubator. That's how I think of it anyway, where you take people and you run them through these processes, yes, to the point where they're creditworthy. And you talked a lot about outcomes. Can you describe, what have the outcomes been like so far? How successful have you been in taking people through that process and getting them to a place where they can, they're running a business, either as a cooperative or otherwise?
Okay, we have had so far over 500 people participated in the process. When I explained the 3 steps that we have, the first one was the digital learning that they need to have. That's what we found out, that a lot of the ideas and projects of these entrepreneurs are very basic. So at the beginning, we didn't know where to discard them or to keep them. So we had to change the whole program to open a door where we could work with them on their needs and to provide them with the tools they could use. There's another kind of entrepreneur where you have people that has 1, 2, 3 years working. We have like 5 or 6 of those already in the process of acceleration. But we are changing the system now by which we would have a previous interview to make sure that those interested in joining the program have more than just an idea, have something which is a business idea or a business model, so that we can really use these tools to help them move along. It is not simple, it is not easy. The program has worked, but this was year 1. So it was learning year, and we did learn a lot of lessons.
Well, it's fascinating, and it is. I think somebody said the FUNDEPOS and your work is inspirational. Thank you so much, Jorge, for your time today. I've learned a lot. I hope others as well. I'm very much looking forward to a fruitful partnership over the next few years.
Thanks to all of you. Thanks for having me here. Have a very nice afternoon.